Hello. Hey, Gary. How you doing?
I'm well, Dylan. Nice shirt, brother.
How do you like my backdrop?
I like it. I like it. I like what I'm seeing. I like it a whole lot.
I didn't know how blue and orange would clash, but
I think you look great, brother.
it's exciting.
So, Dylan, I think let's get right into it because these go very, very fast. I can see everyone in the chat. A lot of Utz OG fans love your product. But for what we're here for, what are your predictions for the rest of 2021? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What's emerging? What's declining? And maybe before that, 30, 45 seconds on Utz, just to give context for the few people that won't know.
Yeah, for those who don't know about Utz, a 100-year-old business, full line, based in Pennsylvania, but have grown regionally into a national company over the last 100 years. We have $1.336 billion of retail sales per IRI, and that's up a ton over last year because of COVID and because of a lot of things that we'll talk about, I'm sure, today, Gary. And excited to be here with you and excited to be working with your crew as well.
Thank you. So to that point, Dylan, what is, and obviously for everyone's knowledge, Dylan and Utz are working with Vayner-X and the Sasha Group. Anything from a marketing standpoint or a consumer consumption standpoint, where people are buying the product, what is the biggest kind of, like, if I said, kind of that fun business talk that you can have over a cocktail, hey, what are you really predicting we're going to see here in the next 6 months? Anything stand out?
I mean, what I would definitely say is that people are coming out. People are traveling, small format. Last year it was all the small format was closed down, right? You think about New York City.
Educate everybody on small format.
Yeah, small format would be like up and down the street business, the bodegas. Just think about New York City. Think about August or July of last year. It was dead, right? People were not going to their office. They were not picking up a sandwich. They were not picking up a bag of chips. They were home, or they had fled the city to some other place and they were staying put inside their house. So I think the number one biggest change that is going to occur and is occurring as we speak today is the fact that people are coming out, that small format, the return to the office. Maybe it's hybridized, maybe it's 2-3 days a week, but that return to the office will stimulate the small format. We've seen last year where we had literally like a stretch of 10-12 weeks where that channel of business really shut down. It's exploding this year. So I think as people get out, as they travel, as they enjoy the weather, as they get outside, as they start traveling back to work, as they start vacationing again, that whole small format is really lifting, and it's lifting brands like, Dirty potato chips and Zapp's potato chips. That's why I'm wearing the Zapp shirt today, but it's lifting those brands up very nicely this year. So that's a big change for this year.
What about on the marketing front? As an executive navigating all these years, obviously our relationship speaks to a contemporary point of view, either shift or affirmation. What's been the most interesting thing that you've seen from a marketing standpoint, since this is marketing for the now, whether it's how people interact with social or television or outdoor, or does anything stand out?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing I think that we've seen, and especially we used to do a lot more sponsorship. If we had $10 million to spend on marketing, we used to spend a lot more on sponsorships. And we're really moving away from that. We're moving directly to digital social, as most people are aware. But what we really love about that is the fact that it's connecting with people. And I think it was one of the last guests, Stephen at Journey, said, meeting people where they are. And I think that's so important because it's absolutely right. I think our brand in general has grown through the 100 years of existence to what it is today by meeting people where they are. And I think that social and digital connection of really being able to connect directly to somebody in a very particular manner, that's not just throwing up a billboard, that 100,000 people pass and 1,000 of them happen to catch it and think about it, but really being able to connect, but then create like that 360 connection where we're connecting with them, they're connecting back to us, we're connecting and it's going back and forth, and we're doing a lot of kind of cool stuff with that right now.
Do you feel that, there's a real mix that watches this show. You have a lot of entrepreneurs, senior executives, and then you have a lot of Fortune 500 CMOs, CEOs. I've always felt that from Madison Avenue to Main Street, one of the things that were really surprising is the disconnect for entrepreneurs that are watching. They'd be surprised how much big companies or bigger brands than their small business really valued what the industry calls reach, right? Like, hey, if we run commercials, if we run those billboards, that will work. And I almost live in this bizarro world because for them, they blindly believe what's going on, and here is how they see stuff. Why, for the fellow executives that are watching, what do you think makes it hard to go away from a big baseball sponsorship or running a bunch of television and getting a lot of GRPs, or the way that, how brands are built, or how Procter & Gamble talk? Like, there's an institutional 50 years of how this is done that is getting disrupted because of the internet. And, we're 20 years now into the internet, and still the majority of big companies still want to go for potential reach versus what I think we're seeing together, which is really winning on relevance, which actually then makes people buy stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think you also have to make sure that what you're spending, if you're spending $1, you have to know that it's working. I mean, that's
Correct.
One of the things I think is that when you do, I mean, we would liken this to say, well, if we were a large beverage company, we could go spend, $3 million on a commercial, and then, hope that it works and put it out there and then roll the dice and it's a dud and it falls apart. I mean, you have no kind of ROI that you can say that dollar worked. And it worked here at a 4.2 return, or, if we went over here, it was 5.9. Let's go somewhere between that 4, let's adjust our messaging. So I think that's the new world. I mean, it's talking about where you're, I just had the benefit of hosting 12 under 17-year-olds for a week at my house last week. And we had two from Italy, 2 from Spain, 2 from Germany, 1 from Bermuda, 1 from Bahamas. These kids, these young consumers, the consumer of tomorrow, were on their phone the whole time. I don't know if the TV ever turned on. So if you're thinking about connecting to tomorrow's consumer, and
you know what's funny? That is often an anecdote people share. I don't think people realize how many 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds are on their phone during commercials. And now with OTT, how many commercials are even getting through?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we really like it.
Yeah, please. Final thoughts, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. What should executives, entrepreneurs, or leaders be thinking about for the rest of 2021? Anything else pop out?
I mean, honestly, very quickly, I thought about this a lot. It's man, people want to get out. People are excited to get out. They've got money in their pocket. They want to reconnect. We had a barbecue yesterday. Saw somebody who hadn't come out of their house for a year. They are so excited to be out and about and to engage and to interact. That's how people should be thinking for the rest of this year. I think it's going to be very positive, very exciting time for everyone, for all brands.
Thanks for being on, my friend. Please tell everybody where you went to high school.
I went to high school where Gary grew up as well, Edison, New Jersey, at a school named JP Stevens. And out of that school, there's a bunch of random entrepreneurs, man. Gary, you know a bunch of them, man.
Why don't you list off, do you know a couple of them to list off for everybody? Because everybody, before Che lists maybe 1 or 2 others, I moved in 8th grade. So my whole life I thought I was going to JP Stevens. Where I lived in a townhouse, I already knew my path because I could cut through the back. It was all very exciting. And then my parents moved me to Hunterdon County, so I never got my JP Stevens experience. But Che, to your point, I read that article, that there was an article written once about all those entrepreneurs and you being one of them. Wild stuff.
Yeah, so you got us here, right? You're honorary JP Stevens.
Thank you.
Gary. I don't know if they gave you that yet, but
I want it.
We're gonna lobby for that. One of the co-founders and the former CEO of Blue Apron was out of JP as well. 3 out of the 4 co-founders of Box. Nature Box was founded out of JP Stevens. A bunch of there's more and more, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is. And even once in a while, I'll just meet a random entrepreneur or someone at a conference just say, hey, JP class of XYZ. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is too much.
I see a lot of people in the comments. It is a good idea. Move to Edison and send your kids there if you want them to be entrepreneurs. Jay, why don't you give 1 minute on Box for the few people that don't know what it is?
Yeah, Box is an online wholesaler. So we not only are an e-commerce retailer, but we are also now an e-commerce enabler. On our e-commerce retail side, we service both B2C as well as B2B customers with snacks, pantry items, everything you need to run your household or your office when it comes to pantry snacks and coffee. On the enablement side, we now package up all that software and hardware that we built. So all the front-end systems, inventory management systems, warehouse management systems, even the physical robots that we engineer and build ourselves. We now enable other retailers in the enterprise to use that technology stack via a new SaaS business. So that's what we built basically in almost 8 years from a garage in Edison.
If I asked you before, actually, let's go into it because we don't have a lot of time. Your personal predictions from your purview of the rest of 2021 on consumer behavior, on opportunities, on marketing strategies, on buying trends, since you're in that game, wherever you take it.
I and this might be kind of bold talk and maybe a little bit too much, but I fundamentally believe from what I've seen that we are going into the most prolific back to school, back to work period in not modern American history, but American history. I think we've never had this many folks not in the office. You've never had this many Americans not in school, and everyone is going back around Labor Day. Maybe not 5 days a week, but certainly some days of the week. And that is going to create huge, probably opportunities as well as supply chain challenges as well. So I fundamentally believe that's coming up in 90 short days.
On that prediction for the rest of the year, do you feel as though people are going to go into a mixed environment? Do you think that we have crossed the chasm of the 5 day a week commute? Is that your intuition, or do you think it's like one of those things, like, is this going to be a moment that looks like, how when you're driving and a cop car's lights go on and you're scared shitless and you grab your both, if it's the first time you've driven with both hands and then the car goes by and you're like so relieved.
Yeah.
But for the first 12 minutes, you drive 55 and then somehow you don't even realize it, but you're back to 73. Do you think that people are saying it, but we'll find ourselves in April of 2023 close to where we were? Or do you think the society's got comfortable with meetings on Zoom and other platforms and we're there?
I think the latter. So meaning that I certainly don't think when we go back to work this September, it's going to be 5 days a week. Everyone's flying halfway around the planet just for a 1 hour meet and greet. I don't think that's going to snap back to like the way that that we used to be back in 2019 and before. But certainly, I think a significant portion of it will come back. And this is not me just being in the pool and just say, hey, I promise you it's not ice cold. Jump in as well. Even today in the office, we're seeing more and more people come back. And when people see each other and hang out, they're all going out for happy hour today. It's just a different atmosphere. Now, I don't think people are going to come back again 5 days a week just for that. But certainly a few days a week if you live in and around the office. I think the other stuff that you mentioned before about 2023, yeah, man, it's no longer an affront if you have to dial into a meeting or Zoom. So if you're trying to pitch the biggest client that you potentially can have, and if you have to Zoom in, I think that's going to be acceptable these days after this pandemic. I think you probably wouldn't want to do that back in 18 or 19, but these days, I don't think anyone would be offended that you don't fly halfway around the world just to shake their hand.
Yeah, I think, it's funny. This is an interesting thing. I probably think 25% of my travel in 2019 would never happen in 2022. If I had to throw a number for you, just think, because I think I've done a lot of Chicago, Miami, Boston for one meeting. There's just no way. There's no way. You have a number of a prediction that for you, let's just yourself, if I said that, gut feeling?
So I'm an outlier in the sense that, dude, I flew 268,000 miles on United in 2019, dude. That was it's brutal. Most of it in economy too. So I have the scars from that year, and I love United, but it's just it's just long flights, So because the first customer of ours on the SaaS side of the house was based in Japan, I was doing in 2019. I did 6 or 7 day trips to Tokyo, and so I don't think we're going to be doing day trips to Tokyo anymore. So at least my mileage will will probably cut down by at least half. I'll do a lot of the domestic travel, but no more international meetings just for one handshake. I think that's behind us. So, but I do think 25% is a fair number. Potentially, if you're an airline CMO or exec out there, I think what I'm seeing, just anecdotally at least, is that some of the leisure travel, that revenge travel, is definitely going to come back and maybe bolster some of that lack of business travel in the coming year and years.
I assume Boxed, benefited in a lot of ways by consumer behavior during COVID. Anything fun to share with us that you can share, like funny things people were buying, or maybe even more interestingly for predictions of 2021, anything that has emerged, any categories, any products, anything kind of like, I'm just being nerdy now and being selfish, just curious. I love this shit. I'm a retailer at heart, so I love this stuff.
Dude, I mean, Gary, we've known each other for a few years now, and I always joke that I'm like a toilet paper salesperson, and like there's always this running joke until 2020 when it got real, man, and it became like the most popular profession on the face of the earth. And I had high school friends hit me up. It's like, yo, we haven't talked in 20 years, brother, but like you got some of that toilet paper for me, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Do you have any sense why toilet paper was so high? I'm still a little like, please tell me.
There's more flex in other things. Like most folks think toilet paper is just, you have a table-sized machine pumping out toilet paper. Modern toilet paper manufacturing plants and machines are basically 3 stories tall, and it takes about $300 million of CapEx to build one. You need to be by a fresh water source. This is full on Warcraft, man. You got to like be by the water, or in order to build one of these things. And so if Gary and Shay made our own toilet paper company, dude, and we put $300 million into that machine, we are going to crank that thing 28 hours a day, 12 days a week. So when there's a surge in demand, it's not like they're like, oh, just crank up excess capacity. There's no extra capacity. Those machines are running 97% capacity already, and to build another one's going to take years. And so there just wasn't that flex.
But why are humans, like, I don't know, like to me, like I'm not so like to me, napkins and tissues and like jumping in the shower. I feel like people are too bougie. Like I didn't I think we've just become soft. Like leaves. Like there's options out there, people.
There are definitely options out there. And so funny anecdote is that I was so confident in my ability to procure toilet paper, just given what we do, that we actually caught ourselves in our household without toilet paper, and I had to scramble and do the walk of shame to our fulfillment center and take a pack off the shelf. And I saw multiple people in the FC look at me just like shaking their head. I'm like, yo, dude, times are tough, man. I underestimated how much we had at home. But yeah, there could have been other things, man. And it was a shocker for me and us.
Brother, continued success. I'm proud of you.
Great to see you.
Great to see you. How you been?
Good. How are you?
Good. Cara is built an amazing company. Most of you who are watching right now are very aware of Hint. I got to meet Cara over a phone call very early in that journey and was so impressed with the way they got distribution for that product. I remember being on a beach or something and talking to you about getting into Starbucks and things of that nature. And just, it's been really a joy to watch you build this company.
Thank you. I remember that call as well. So
Cara, why don't you tell people really quickly, because I'm sure there'll be at least 5% that don't know the brand. Let's start there, and then we'll go into what you're seeing in the streets for the rest of 2021.
So I have it here in case people are wondering what the heck it is. So it's an unsweetened flavored water that I started actually 16 years ago. For people who are thinking that there's overnight success stories, I mean, it takes time to build quality and great brands, and I'm really proud of what we've done. And started 16 years ago. In addition to building a great product, we've built a different way of actually going to market. Over 50% of our business is direct to consumer. So when you look at the beverage industry as a whole, there are certainly companies, the big soda companies, that are selling on Amazon and Box and others, sure. But having a direct business and having that direct relationship with the customer is something that we've built for the last 8 years. And it's a solid, incredible subscription business that many, many people are using.
What stood out for you before we go into what's happening in 2021? There's been a lot of contextual COVID conversations. Anything anything stand out from you? Did anything catch you off guard? Was anything a pleasant surprise from a consumer behavior standpoint?
As far as the pandemic?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the pandemic, actually right before the pandemic hit, I guess the end of 2020, we were really focused on automating a lot of our plants. And so most people in the beverage industry were like, why are you doing that? By the way, I didn't come from the beverage industry. I came from the tech industry, and my husband is our chief operating officer, and he also came from the tech industry. So we kept thinking about, well, what if somebody sneezes on the line, right? As we're filling a bottle, we don't have preservatives in the product. What happens? So we wanted to get the people out of the room. We've been working on this for 4 years to get the people out of the room. By the end of 2019, we had everybody out of the room and automated and got those people away from where the actual fill was. By the time the pandemic hit, we learned that as an essential product in a pandemic, you have to be running your plants 24 hours a day. You have to do your best practices to best efforts to actually supply the store shelves. So people were hoarding toilet paper, but they were also hoarding water, bottled water, and products like Hint. So being able to actually run our facility without any hiccups, because we had planned it out, was a tremendous advantage. In addition to that, we do everything here in the U.S. So we've always believed that get things as local as possible. We blow our own bottles on the lines, where everything has been done in the U.S. So when the pandemic hit, we got a phone call from Costco, and they said, "Hey, do you guys do everything local? Because we're having a lot of problems with suppliers that are supposed to be getting cans from China, and they're not coming. So can we put you guys nationwide with Costco?" So in addition to going nationwide at the beginning of 2020 with Walmart and Sam's Club and other huge retailers, we went nationwide in April with.
So you got extra distribution because of the localization.
Yeah, and also just because we were, automated as well. And so one of my predictions really for, remainder of 2021 and going forward is supply chain. It matters. Automation, localization, and, pretend that there's another pandemic coming, because the more that you can rely on, or I should say, the more you can rely less on people being in the room, that is where you protect yourself and your company.
What about from a marketing or just what consumers are doing with products or consumption of media or marketing? What are you seeing? What are you kind of predicting over the rest of this year, maybe into 2022?
Yeah, so for years, I've been telling people, drink water, not sugar, and get the sweeteners out of your life, and health is really important. And lots of people listened, but there were some people where it went in one ear and out the other, and they just did whatever they wanted. Today, I think if anything great came out of the pandemic, it's that people want to stay healthy. Nobody wants this virus. If they got the virus, they don't want it again, and they want to protect themselves in any way that they can. And so health and wellness as a category is accelerated, but it's here to stay, and it's just going to get bigger. And what I'm most excited about is watching companies that are going to be developed out of how do we help people stay healthier. Obviously, we've seen companies like Hint and Peloton and lots of other segments of that. But I think it's just going to increase, and I think consumers are listening now, and they want it, and I think it's so important. And I think also the direct consumer with the direct relationship with the consumer. So I think e-commerce is here to stay. And I think we're going to see companies that have not really embraced it because they think, well, there's still these relationships with stores. We've got them. We've got lots of space. But another pandemic comes, you start to, shut down fast food restaurants, universities. you start to see that, wow, what happens? What can I do to protect myself? Having that direct relationship with the consumer has become more and more important.
I mean, even pre-pandemic, just having the actual data, when you're a big brand and you're selling your product through Albertsons or Kroger's or BJ's or Costco or Walmart, you don't actually know who's buying it.
Totally. And that's the thing too. I mean, the other thing that we've seen, Gary, is that the consumer that is going online and buying hint from us or from Amazon, they'll also walk through a Costco store, and they may not go there every week, but they may go there every month, and they see, a variety pack that they can't buy from us online, and they're going to pick it up, right? And so our sales, our direct-to-consumer business tripled in the last 17 months. Our overall business grew by over 50%. 50%. So it's crazy what's going on. But I think it also speaks to another trend that I think is really, really important, which is that the consumer is really looking for authentic brands to guide them. And so, I know you love talking about storytelling. I'm a huge believer in that as well. But it's also about how to lead consumers. So, for example, we started our company with hint water. And a few years ago, I had a scare with skin cancer. And I came out with sunscreen. The number of brands, or the number of soda brands that were saying, what is that tech executive doing? She's coming out with the sunscreen brand. It was never my purpose. My purpose was to service the customer and help customers understand that here's a great product. We never even stuck it on the beaches anywhere to sample it. We just said, hey, you like hint water? Come and try this hint sunscreen. We had like an 80% return on just an email that went out to these consumers because they trust the brand. They believe in it.
I'm a big fan of horizontal expansion for brands. I think a lot of brands have a lot of permission to go into other categories and haven't gone there. That's a little bit of a prediction for the next decade. Cara, continued success. Great to see you. Hey, bro. How are you? Yeah. Let's just get right into it. I think a lot of people are probably excited about this. I see the comments exploding. What are your predictions? I mean, obviously you've been spending a ton of time with NFTs, but obviously you're spending a ton of time in the sports business. So with this broad question, what are your predictions for the rest of the year? What's on your mind?
I should have probably thought about this a little bit more. Well, yeah, I'll keep it close to home. NFTs, in general, obviously you and I have spent a ton of time on it this year. It's funny, I think the media, there's certain subset of the media that wants to play this narrative that NFTs are dead. I think that's the first thing from the case. I think you have a lot of brands that just a month ago decided that they're going to take it seriously. I think I saw something like Fox invested $100 million to stand up a division that's going to focus on their IP and NFTs. So I think NFTs will continue to expand. I think that everybody that's developing for NFTs from like a picks and shovels perspective knows that there's friction that needs to be reduced. Everybody knows that, fiat purchasing ability is going to be a big deal. And, even things that are like L2, like Matic, they're too hard for the everyday consumer. So I think we're going to see more on that front. So that's fun. I think another thing that's really relevant to my world, in addition to NFTs, given the sports agent route, is just name, image, and likeness. We're 2 weeks away. We still have some
why don't you break down that for everybody who's watching what that means?
Yeah, so name, image, and likeness in regards to collegiate sports is the idea that for the first time, college athletes will have the ability to monetize their personal brands. The NCAA has made that not okay. They've threatened, eligibility for anybody that tried to make money. There was actually a kicker who was making good money on YouTube.
Oh, I remember. I forgot about that kid. Down in Florida? In Florida?
Yeah, FAU or FIU, one of those smaller Florida-based schools. And he actually was just like, well, cool. Like, I don't think I'm going to make the NFL. And the NCAA says, I'm not allowed to make money, then I guess I'm not going to play football anymore. And so he kept making money, and he's built up a brand as an influencer and has done well. I think made the right decision. And I just think that's terrible that he had to make that decision. You have all these other industries, right? You have musicians. There's plenty of musicians that were attending school and making money on Spotify and YouTube and touring, and they weren't stopped. So that's exciting. We've got a few states that are going to go live. It's still a complicated issue. There's still things that can happen from a federal government and NCAA perspective over these next few weeks, but we're inching towards progress. And so that's going to be fun. I think it's going to create a lot of buzz. And I think it's something that's long overdue. So that's going to be a fun part of the second half of 2021 as well.
What do you glazed over? Well, you spoke on it. Where would you put NFT culture at the macro consumer level? Like, how early are we? Are we in the first inning, second inning, third inning?
I'll say we're in the second inning. I give NBA Top Shot a lot of credit for getting us from the first to the second. I have a good group of friends that are not knee deep into technology, and they're always my litmus, right? Even back in the day, Gare, like when we did like things like Uber and Venmo, I would literally introduce Uber and Venmo to my friend group, right? And it was always really interesting for me to see the reactions, and I would look for, their pros and their cons and latch on to certain things. And
I think about the Venmo meeting a lot. We were so early.
And so were they. They didn't even have a product.
Remember we went to
we started in a Starbucks,
and then we went to my apartment.
Yeah.
We nailed that investment, and they sold the company fairly early before it went bananas.
Yeah. No,
that was as early as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, when we invested in Venmo, it was SMS only at that point. So it was, you could text money to one another, and there was a slew of verifications, and there was no.
It kind of reminds me of like the NFT stuff you're talking about right now, because we're so early. Like, it's, as a matter of fact, it was funny. I was going to hit you up off this show, but I'll just do it right now. Like, I'm going to do like a white glove concierge thing. I had like 4 emails on this flight from people like, hey, I have $100,000 I want to buy in VFriends. I'm scared shitless. I have no idea. And I was like, F it. Nick Dio, Tyler, I'm gonna get the whole band together, send out a bunch of content next week, and be like, if you're a baller.
We did it on the launch. I white gloved like 15 people into the experience. Dio did too. Like, that's what we did around the launch, and it's still a need. Like you said, it's not easy, it's not intuitive, it's scary. You read the headlines of stealing and scams and phishing, and the problem is that stuff exists. Like, the people that are in crypto are some of the smartest people in the world. And there, unfortunately, some small subset of that population is taking advantage of people, right? And so it's so early. A good example is, the most important thing in the world when it comes to your wallet is your seed phrase. And it's so early that I think actually seed phrase is kind of going under a rebrand right now, right? There's a great article about pivoting it to secret phrase so that people know that it's supposed to be a secret. You're not supposed to share your seed phrase, but what the hell is a seed phrase? Nobody knows what a seed phrase is. So it's that early that like the main components of crypto and NFTs, I still think are a work in progress. And I think it's a big deal. So I think NBA Top Shot helped us get from the first to the second inning. They used a big IP like the NBA. You could buy via credit card. That was a big deal.
I'm getting. No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I'm good.
We only have 4 minutes. I'm getting bombarded. Everybody wants to know what your favorite VFriend is.
My favorite VFriend is my favorite investment is the very, very, very lucky black cat. I own a core of a very rare and an epic of that. So I'm making a bet that maybe the cat can be a Pikachu type character. It's the only one in the logo. So from a pure investment perspective, that one. From a pure just for fun, because I like the product and everything, and I think you probably know this, I'm a big fan of the Stunned Sun. Just because the Stunned Sun for me is like such an inside joke, right? Like, stunned is a word that you and I always use growing up amongst like our closest friends and stuff like that. It's just like a word, I think like super is a big word for me and you. Stunned is a big word for you and I. So like that I like. And then the sun character itself is a real throwback to your old school doodles. Like, it's half sun, half like classic Gary doodle character. So that one just resonates for me. I don't think that's going to be a lot of people's favorites. That's just highly personal.
Now I'm just having fun. Were you completely blown away by how the Hawks came back yesterday? That was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch the game, so I kind of caught it as a post game. What were they down? 26 in the third? It's insane.
Late third. Like 3 minutes left on the road, game 5.
If we're talking basketball, I want to give a shout out to a guy that I think I've always been higher on than most everybody. And he catches a ton of shit. And I don't think he got nearly enough love for last night as Paul George. I think Paul George is an incredible basketball player. He's had some bad playoff performances, but I mean, Kawhi goes down. That's a huge W and a huge game for Paul George in a game 5, in my opinion.
What about the Suns fan who beat it out of those two?
Love that guy. Love that guy.
You want to hear the best part?
Self-defense. So he wasn't
Completely
like
self-defense. That's right.
complete self-defense. And the fact that he had like the wherewithal to cap the beat down with the prediction of Suns in 4 and then it delivered, iconic. I'm all in on that guy.
As you know, like we always get so pumped when like athletes or rappers or people we think are cool are following me on Instagram. So I was on this flight, I was going through it, and I found his Instagram account. Like somebody tagged him. He follows me. I'm so.
You have to connect. What are we doing? Where are we?
I didn't do anything. I got to think of something. We got to come up with a. I might have to use. I might have to. Go ahead.
Portnoy had him on the pod already.
I think I might put him in a Super Bowl commercial.
I love it.
I might create a new V friend
Just
that beats up people like.
You know what you gotta do?
Like
You gotta take a
fighting
picture with
fan
him.
Falcon.
You gotta take a picture with him where you're doing the 5 and he's doing
the 4. That's good.
That would kill. You just need to fly in New York for that picture alone. I feel like that's a big one.
Maybe we'll. If it looks, I feel like the Suns are gonna be in the finals. Maybe you and I will fly out to a game and bring him. Take a.
Let's leave Nate behind.
No, we got to take Nate. Nate's
I
our
know.
guy. I'm happy for him. Sad for us. Are you ready for football?
Beyond ready for football.
I'm so excited for the Jets.
It's a fresh slate to a certain extent. They've cleaned up a lot of the shit that Joe inherited, and so we'll see what they do. Up to them.
AJ, thanks for being on. Everybody, thank you so much for watching Marketing for Now. Love you, bro. I'll talk to you later. Evan, thank you so much for having a couple seconds and being able to tell the Believe Nation a little bit about Empathy Wines. It means a lot to me that you would take this valuable real estate and time on your channel to give me some love. It means a lot. It's just good karma points, and so you're awesome. Thank you. Believe Nation, if you're into wine at all, go to empathywines.com. My whole career's work was poured into producing a wine that rivaled $40 to $60 wine for 20 bucks a bottle. I'm just super excited about this subscription-based wine business. You can order 3, 6, or 12 bottles in subscription form, rosé, white, red. If you search on Instagram or Twitter, you will be blown away. People are literally like, I don't even like Gary Vee, but the wine's good. Super proud of the effort. Thanks, Evan, for the time. Wishing you guys all happy and healthy.
If you want to learn how to market on social media like Gary Vee, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.